This morning, as you've seen, as you've heard, we have a special occasion. We have some special guests. We have the Milan High School football team with us this morning. Coaches are here, led by Coach Carr. We are glad you're here. We're thankful that you're here. We hope that you want to come back and join us later down the road. See, this opportunity is unique for me because I see these guys in the hallways every day. Not only do I see these guys in the hallways every day, but I've had some in class. And then on top of that, we play for them on Friday nights. So I want to say thank you to Chad, thank you to the elders for considering me for this and asking me to do this. And because of this occasion this morning, I also have family who has come in. You see them back there sitting with Anna. So I've got my parents is here as well this morning, so I'm thankful for that. And we're thankful for everybody here this morning, not only our guests and our visitors, but our members. Thank you for being here with us. Now, originally when Chad asked me if I wanted to do this, we were outside the CAC. He said, hey, mark this date down, the football team's coming. He said, I think it'd be really cool if you would do the speaking. I said, sure. What I didn't realize until about 2 weeks later after talking to Janan at lunch was it wasn't just a Thursday or Friday night kind of thing where we feed the football team and I give them a little 5-minute motivational speech. No, it was actually going to be a Sunday morning. But nonetheless, I am thankful for that, and I would have said yes whether I knew out the gate it was Sunday morning or not. But life lesson right there for you, always know what you're saying yes to. And so that is marked and that is booked. So this morning, I want to talk about something that I think all of us have asked at one point in time. And really for you younger guys here and the youth in this congregation, it's going to be a question that you're going to find yourself asking more times than not. And that is, what's my purpose? Right, what's my purpose? And so when I look at a word, when I break that down, one of the things that I like to do is I like to define that word. So without giving the Webster Dictionary version of purpose, I like to simplify it like this. Why you're here. Why you are doing what you're doing. And so an example of that, in my classes, I teach JAG at the high school. It's a life skills class. One of the first few things we do in those couple of days is they stand up. And we do an acronym. See, I learned something in school. We do an acronym. It's greeting, name, affiliation, purpose. That's GNAP. And so the G is pretty simple. It's a greeting. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where we are in the class. Your name, your affiliation, so whether they're freshman, sophomore, junior, senior at the high school. And then their purpose. I don't give them this. It doesn't take long for somebody to raise their hand and say, Mr. Leek, what do we say for our purpose? And say, I'm glad you asked. So I give them the same thing that I just gave to you, why you're here, why we're doing what we're doing. And so when you ask high school kids that, one of the first things I get is, because we have to be. Fair point, right? Fair point, you have to be. But there's a greater reason why you're here. And so about the second or third person, it finally gets out, I am here to graduate. They are there to graduate. It's not because they want to be, because what high school kid wants to be in school just to be there, right? They're there to graduate. So they stand up in real time, it'll look like this and say, good morning, my name is Brandon Leek. I'm a senior at the high school. I will graduate. And what happens is they don't get to opt out of that option right there. What do I mean by that? Is if they tell me anything except I will graduate, they sit down and do it again. You see, they can't tell me I want to graduate, I think I will, or I hope to. No. They sit down, they stand back up, they do it again. They say, I will graduate. You see, because for some students, they've got a good head on their shoulders. They know what they're going to do. But there are several that aren't really sure. There are several that are really even contemplating whether they want to be at high school or not. And so we start on day one. We start within the first couple of days doing this. And we do it once a week, every single week. And what you can see, I've had some guest speakers in this week. They've started standing up and doing this. I have seen the confidence grow so much between day one when they did this to when they're doing this in my classroom now. And it's only going to get better by the time we get to December. And for my seniors, as we keep on going, they add more stuff to it. We add the eye contact. We add the handshake. We add to make sure we're not fidgeting or messing with our hair when we're greeting somebody. And then by the end of that, they give me a better purpose. Not only are they going to graduate, but they're going to tell me where they're going. I'm going to UT Knox to major in engineering. I'm going to UT Martin to major in education. They add something to that every time. Because what that does for a lot of those kids is it gives them a reason to be there. Now they know why I'm there. And so I think when we're looking at purpose, not only do we all have a purpose, but I think we have multiple purposes. So what do I mean by that? Is we have our personal purposes, right? I have a purpose as a teacher. I have a purpose working with the youth, being a dad, being a husband. I have different things that I'm reaching for right then. And you guys do too. So the thing that I really want to focus on this morning is your Christian purpose. But you know real quick that I couldn't be up here this morning without at least showing one picture of Brody. So when we talk about that purpose, when we talk about having that purpose as working with our youth alive, you know we've started working with our youth beginning in July. And when I think about a purpose as a dad and what I want from my son, this is it. This is Brody. That's Eli, and beside Eli is Sawyer. We were on our way to do our nursing home service, which is one of my favorite things that we do with our youth. We had stopped to get something to eat. Brody hops out of the van. He grabs Eli's hand. Eli never let go. Eli didn't care that he wasn't related to him or that Brody is 4 years old and he picks his nose and everything else with that hand. No, he didn't care, right? He held his hand and he walked it and he kept it inside that restaurant and held onto it even then some after that. And I can't think of something more to want for my son than this right here. To grow up in an environment, in a situation where everybody believes the same thing and that he's got that support there. So this is awesome for me. This is one of our favorite jobs that we've had so far, in addition to teaching and being parents, is working with the youth. This is something that I hope that everybody can experience. You see, because the reality is we live in a world that's filled with distractions and pressures. Sometimes we lose sight of what our purpose is. And so with the special guest being here, I asked Coach Carr when I knew they were coming, I said, Coach, so tell me what your purpose is for your boys. And he said, we instill in them our core values, which are discipline, accountability, what's next, and grit. Another acronym. We try to show them what this looks like in life as husbands, fathers, sons, and not just the game of football. And I'll tell you, just from what I see in the hallway and from what I see in school, they're doing a great job. These coaches are doing a great job. So something I want to show you, if you don't stay to the end of our football games, this is what you miss. In this particular picture, the coaches know what's going on, and maybe some people in here. So I want to talk about that for a minute. This was the end of that Huntington game. Right? We know that emotions got the best of some players. It happens. And I know we're looking back at the dogs and the discipline and the accountability. And I promise you the coaches teach that discipline. But a big game got the best of emotions. And guess what? That happens to us too, right? We know what's expected of us. And we fall short. But guess what? We've got a God that is forgiving, a God that forgives, a God that understands that we are going to fall short. And really what I like to think about is it's not about what happens in that moment, it's about how you bounce back. It's about what you do after that. And I can promise you, by teaching next door to a coach, they were held accountable for this at that next practice. Right? Because I know that the coach instills in them the discipline, the accountability, the what's next, and the grit. So I've got you here, fellas. I want to talk to you for just a second. Your coaches see the importance of you being in the church pew this morning. They know the importance, and they know that there's a greater purpose than football, right? That there is an ultimate purpose that you guys are trying to strive after. And so what I want to talk to you about for real quick, I want to think of like the life of a seed, and without getting too complex, let's keep it real basic. So outside of needing a seed, I think you need three things: good soil, water, and light. And I believe that what your coaches are giving to you right now outside the seed is that good soil that you need to be successful. So it's up to you to find the light and to find the water. So what's the light? It's probably what you're thinking. It's the church. It's the word. Because much like you would look at your syllabus or your rules to find out what's expected of you and what you need to do, the Bible has all that in it. It has exactly what you need to do. And the water, this is where it gets a little bit on the more uneasy side for you. I want you to look to your left and right real quick. That's your water. All right, so what do I mean by that? We need water to grow, right? The people that you surround yourself with, not only on the team, but when you get outside, when you go to your personal lives. Are those people around you somebody that's watering you to grow? Are those people around you somebody that's watering you just a little bit to where we just get out of the soul, but you never reach your full potential? Or the people that you're around and surround yourself with, are they even watering you at all? So again, thank you, coaches. Thank you, Coach Carr, for understanding the importance and that there is a greater purpose for these young men. Please understand what these coaches are doing for you. They want you to be successful men in the community. They want you to be great dads, great fathers. They want you to be Christians because there is a greater purpose. So thank you. So continuing on, what I want to look at this morning, so we talked about there are these kind of personal purposes this morning. I want to focus on our Christian purpose. All right, our Christian purpose. It's why we are here. Remember the words that we looked at, why you're here, why you do the things that you do. And so I'm going to go over 5 things, and when I get into that 5 things, we're going to try something a little different so that you can actually think about your purpose this morning. But 5 things to think about before we do this. Number 1, it's God's purpose in creation. When we look back, we look into Genesis 1:27. It talks to us about God creating mankind in his own image. So when I think about that, I think God created me to be in his image. It's not Brandon's image. It's not this person's image or somebody else's. It's God's image. So I'm looking at what we're doing in our day-to-day lives. Am I reflecting God in my day-to-day life? Am I reflecting God as a teacher, as a husband, as a dad? Am I reflecting God? And that's what you have to consider. We're here to love, to worship, and obey. The second thing I want to look at, serving others. We're also called to serve others. We are called to be selfless. Matthew 20:28 says, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. You see, our purpose should be tied to service, just as Jesus did. And so we can do this through different ways, right? We can do it through compassion, selflessness, loving your neighbors. There are different ways to serve others, but the key thing there is being selfless. The third thing, your spiritual gifts. You see, God equips each of us with unique gifts and talents. 1 Corinthians 12:4-7 says there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone it is the same God at work. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. You see, your spiritual gifts, you don't have to be up here to talk. That's not for everybody. Well, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family where I'm kind of used to this. Like I have that nervous energy here, but I'm not afraid to get up here. That's not for everybody. Because while I'm okay getting up with here, there's no way I'm leading singing. Right? And without the youth being too mean, they could probably tell you I'm not the best song leader. Right? I can kind of hold the tune and keep the song going, but I don't hit every note. But that's okay. That's not where I feel that I was called to serve. And so you don't have to be a song leader. You don't have to get up here and speak. You don't have to be a preacher. There are different ways that we can serve. Your coaches, your teachers, nurses, police officers, business owners. You have a way that you can serve. You just have to dig down deep and find out what way can I serve Jesus and what way can I show others Jesus through what I do. So look at what your spiritual gifts are. Look at what God has given you to be able to spread the word. The fourth thing we need to do is seek God's will. Discovering our purpose involves seeking God's will. Psalm 143:10. That whole little expert there you're seeing where he's just crying for mercy and he's reaching out, he's praying out and he says, teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your God's Spirit lead me on level ground. So how do we seek God's will? We can do this through prayer, meditation, scripture. But there's a caution there. Right? And it's one of these I've learned personally myself. When we're praying, because I know you've probably been there, right? You don't understand why you're there. You're like, God, just give me a sign. Like, tell me why I'm here. I don't understand why I'm here. The caution is, when you go and you ask for that in prayer, you have to have an open mind. Because sometimes the answer that you're going to get is not the answer that you're looking for. Right? Sometimes the answer that you get is not the answer that you're looking for. Because what we have to remember is God has a plan for us. It's already set in stone. And we may think that we need this job because it's going to do X, A, B, C for me. But in reality, God's got a different plan for you. And so sometimes that's hard to see, right? Sometimes life doesn't turn out the way we want to, and we don't understand that, so we're like, why? Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. But you find out maybe not the next day, maybe not a week, maybe not a month. Maybe you find out in God's time what your purpose actually is and what his will is with you. And the last thing I want to look at on this one is the Great Commission. Matthew 28:19-20. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you, and surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. So when we're looking at a purpose, I imagine there are three types of people in here this morning when we're talking about a purpose. I imagine I've got people in here you've got that purpose set, and you're doing a really good job, and you're on track. But I also imagine I've got people in here that's thought about the purpose, but maybe they're not putting it into action. Or maybe they've thought about the purpose, and they've gotten off track. Then I imagine there's people in here this morning that's never really thought about their Christian purpose in general. So this morning, I want to try something different. So when Chad saw this, he's like, whew. All right, so I'm going to try something a little different. What I like to do, because you're going to need this part when we do our small group, and I'll get to that in just a second. But sometimes I feel like I hear lessons I'm doing really good, and I remember them, and they're really good, and then I get so busy with my day-to-day life that I forget to go back and look at that and actually self-reflect. So I want to give you a moment this morning to self-reflect. And what I want you to do is on a piece of paper, your phone, whatever you have, I want you to reflect on what your purpose is. Right? Think about it. 1.5 minutes seems kind of long, but it's not that long. And while we're doing that, I know that we still got some young kids in here, and that's fine. Because what I want to tell you, too, from growing up with that, let them be in here. Let them cry. Let them make monster truck sounds, action figure sounds. It doesn't matter. Let them be here, because just as important as it is for everybody else to be in here this morning, it's important for them to be here, too. So I promise you, they're not bothering me. Let them do their thing in this 1.5 minutes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set a timer. And I want you to think, again, in that 1.5 minutes, reflect back what we looked at on the 5 things. We talk about being created in God's image and seeking God's will, your spiritual gifts, the Great Commission. Look at those things when you're considering what your purpose is. So in 1.5 minutes, begin. Thirty seconds. Ten seconds. All right, that's time. So 1.5 minutes may can seem long, but I've also been there when you're really trying to think and you're really trying to write. 1.5 minutes also goes by very fast. So I want you to have that purpose, because when you go to your small groups, and if you don't, I encourage you to look in that bulletin board this morning and look at those questions that are there and answer those. Because before you can even answer those questions, I think it's important that we have to start and we have to have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, how can we start? So there's something that goes in line with a purpose. I think the words are kind of pretty interchangeable with each other. But to have a purpose, if you got that and you're not reaching it, maybe it's because you don't have goals. And it might not be because you don't have goals. Maybe you don't have specific goals, or your goals aren't in line with what you're trying to achieve with your Christian purpose. So goals, those are awesome, right? I told you, think back to the JAG classroom. We're talking about their purpose, and they say, I will graduate. And we know that they want to graduate, but can they do that just by simply showing up? No. The biggest answer is no. I know there's some, but no. You still have to be there. You have to show up. You can't learn if you're not there. You still have to pass your classes. And then for the people that have even bigger ambitions and they want to be top 10 in their class, or they want to get academic scholarships or sports scholarships, guess what? There's some more things that you have to look at there. You can't do that just by simply being there. You have to put in more work. And so the goals, what they do is it helps us stay aligned and in path with our purpose. You see, sometimes we do get off track, right? We got the straight line. That's the easiest way to get there, but sometimes we get off, and that's fine. Remember what I said earlier? It's how we bounce back. So our goals, what we're looking at, there's 4 things I want you to think about when you're thinking about your goals later on today. Number 1, your biblical foundation of those goals. Proverbs 16:9 says, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. So again, you think you have a plan, but the Lord is establishing our steps for us. Be open, because sometimes you may be called for something different. Be open. Number 2, the purpose of godly goals. Matthew 6:33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Number 3, we need to set godly goals. We must seek God's guidance and his wisdom when setting our goals. Or we can do that through prayer and meditation. We have to have a clear vision that's inspired by God's revelation to keep us focused and disciplined. That's James 1:5. And then the last part is to pursue godly goals. Colossians 3:23 through 24. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for the human master, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ that you're serving. And so for me, a lot of things we look at with your purpose and your goals, it should sound like a lot of them kind of align with each other and they mesh with each other. Remember, we're called to serve through your service. That talks about knowing that you are serving the Lord Christ and that everything that you're doing, that you're supposed to do it for the Lord. A few more things to consider is 1 Timothy 6, verses 6 through 11. This is just a summary up here. It talks about godliness with contentment is great gain. We brought nothing in this world and we can take nothing out. That focuses on the materialistic things. So when you're setting your purpose and you're setting those goals, are they set towards materialistic? Because we do know that we were put on this earth, but we know that there is a greater purpose. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be good at what you do, but you have to remember that our purpose isn't materialistic. So when you're thinking about that, are your goals, is your purpose in line with materialistic things, or is it set up for God's will? 1 John 2:15 through 17, do not love the world or anything in it. John 6:26 through 40, this is just verse 27 out of this. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life. That's what Chad read for you this morning. Remember, we're not working for food that spoils. Remember, you can't take anything with you. Brought nothing in, can't take anything out. So it's okay to have those championships and strive for that. But remember, again, there is an ultimate purpose. There is a greater purpose for why we're doing what we're doing. Proverbs 16:9, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but again, the Lord establishes their steps. And so we need to remember that when we align our goals with his will, we find fulfillment. We find joy. We find a sense of accomplishment. Because there's only so much that those materialistic things can give you. Remember, there's a greater purpose. Proverbs 16:3, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Put the Lord first. Seek the Lord when you're doing this, and he will establish your plans. As long as you're doing those things and you're doing what's asked of you in the Word and in the Bible, you guys will be good. Remember these things, and remember what these coaches are doing for you. They're doing great things. They want big things for you. So this morning, I'm going to ask you one more time, what is your purpose? Now, hopefully this morning you have a purpose so that you have a start point. Because if you didn't have a purpose, I hope when you leave here this morning that you have a starting point. And I hope that if you're struggling, that the people that you're around, the water, that they will help you when you're failing, that they will help you to get better. So this morning, perhaps you know and you've known your spiritual purpose. You've just gotten a little bit off track. You just need support and you need prayers. Perhaps this morning, you've realized that you've not taken the first step in your Christian purpose, and you want to make that decision to be baptized. This morning, what we want you to know is that whether you need support, whether you need prayers, or you want to make that first step, that the church is here for you. So this morning, if you have any needs, we invite you to come while together we stand and sing.